So again, and maybe what you're noticing is that these elements all seem like they'd be pretty self-explanatory. Header, main, article, and section is a little bit confusing if you're just to hear those, right? You'd be like, oh. Or you could start thinking about them in terms of the newspaper, and they're not so bad. It's an article, and the article has sections, or it's the weekend section, right? Footer. So these elements, right, just their names tell you a lot. An aside, their names tell you a lot. And go with that. Go with that. And then also, as much as possible, know the details. Know the examples that are given in the documentation. So now let's take a look at aside and footer. And so here is a aside, and it's content that's related to something, and the examples are what is really helpful when kind of figuring out, where would I use this. So sidebars, inserts, advertisements, biography of the author, related links on the blog. And so here are some examples if you want to look at different asides. I like MDN's documentation. I'm not sure if this is it. We'll go see. And yeah, perfect. And so, here's their example. Like the Disney movie Little Mermaid was first released in 1989. The movie earned $87 million during its initial release. More info about the movie. And so here's how that prints out. But like an aside, it's almost like, oh, and by the way, the movie earned this much money. Now back to what I was telling you about, right? It's kind of an aside. But something that's tangentially related to the main content. And yeah, anyhow, that's related links on the blog. Those are those examples. It starts getting late. I start losing my ability to talk. So if it gets too bad, I'm just going to stop. I'm trying to get this training done. All right, so footer. So here are the examples. Information about footer just goes in the footer. And where can we put it? Right? Where can the footer, like what can its parent be? Like what can have a footer, which is the same thing of saying what can its parent be? Permitted parent, any element that accepts flow content. So anything that accepts flow content, because footer is a member of the content category, flow content. These are the two clubs it belongs to right here, right? So footer is a member of the flow content category. And it could have any parent that accepts flow content. Since footer is flow content, it needs a parent that accepts flow content. So we could just go look, like, hey, can I put this in a section? And if a section accepts flow content, then a footer can go in there. I know that starts to become like a logic game a little bit, and this isn't the clearest. But this is like the categories I belong to, so it belongs to the flow content categories. These are the things that it can take, right? So it could take people, elements that belong to those categories. And then who can its parents be? Well, since it's flow content, its parents have to accept flow content. Like I guess that was as clear as I've said it. Right, so I'll stop while I'm ahead. So here's examples of the footer. Information about the author of the section. Copyright data. Links to related documents, right? Enclose information about the author in an address element that can be included into the footer element. So we'll see that coming up. We're going to look at the address element. But anyhow, that's the footer. And, anything that accepts flow content can have a footer. An article can have a footer. A section can have a footer. The whole page can have a footer. We saw with an article, it had, it had that footer. So right here, article has that footer right there. It might be interesting just to look at the section MDN example. I didn't put it into our notes when I put these notes together back in the spring, like 7 months ago now, 6 months ago. But here I'm just kind of looking at the examples, and I could see why I didn't include them. They're not like a whole page. I like having a whole page. It's like, well, this used to be a div, I'm making a section. This used to be a div, I'm making a section. It's like that didn't help. Whereas this one is helpful, just looking at like how sections are used in this article broken up into two sections. It's like, oh, that's cool. I like that. All right, so and do the sections have footers? That one doesn't, and no, this one doesn't either. So, but it made sense that the article did. that entire article. All right, so that's a side and footer. And just remember the different use cases for a side and that a footer, right, is like, like it is here. Like here is the footer. And if we had some author information for all of this, it would be in between address tags. All right, that's a side and that's a footer.